Hello everyone, this is candidate master Victor Neustroev, and today we're going to analyze the game between Dadal Cristinel and Scott Stanley. And it was a different opening. It was not Sicilian, but it was Sicilian. e4, c5, knight f3, g6, what is known as accelerated dragon or hyper-accelerated dragon. Of course, d4 is the main line, and this is what I suggest you to play. So, for example, d4, c takes d4, and knight takes d4. Let's say bishop g7. Then up to you. c4 is the main move. However, knight c3 can be played as well. And then bishop e3. And in such a case, this bishop comes to c4. So I usually play like this. c4, knight c6, bishop a3. Well, queen b6 sometimes is played, but knight b3 is okay. Queen retreats and we just play knight c3. This is a really good bishop, so to trade it for a knight is a bad idea. Let's go back. In this position, white decided not to open it, but play d3, bishop g7 and g3. This is what people usually play when they focus on the kingside attack against Sicilian. Knight f6, bishop g2, h6. Maybe not the best move, and definitely not important move in this position. Instead, I would recommend something like knight c6. Castle, castle, rook e1. Just to activate the rook. How would I play? As I remember here, one of the best plans is to maybe knight c3, then maybe get the knight to e2, then knight, the other one can go to h4 or maybe e1, then f4, then this knight goes back, and white plays something similar to King's Indian, but with reversed colors. Rook e1, knight c6, c3. So here white decided slightly change the plan to focus on the king side. This is a different strategy, but it's still possible to play. d5, knight bd2. This is a strange move because I think e5 is the most logical one in this position. Then what? Knight escapes, then d4 should be played. Or maybe not now, but knight bd2 now, where we control the center. And if now he tries to attack with queen, then d4. That was much better, because this is how white controls the center and gets enemy pieces out. However, knight to d2 was played immediately. Bishop g4. This is a normal move. Maybe someone can say this is an accuracy, but the only inaccuracy I see is that it still allows white to play e5 in this position. h3, bishop e6. Maybe h6 was played to prevent knight g5 activity. That's why black decided to locate the bishop on e6. Knight h2. You see, by playing knight h2, white wants to get one of his pawns to f4 and the other one to e5. Then probably g4. So here white decided to combine two plans, to play on the king side and in the center. Queen c7. The pawn on h3 is hanging. That's why in this position h4 should be played, not to blunder the pawn. Knight to e5. I don't really understand this move, and I believe e takes on d5 should be played. The only option is to capture with the knight, and then oh, this is actually what happened in the game. And then for some reason, oh, actually knight b3 is a good move. Okay, knight b3. Here probably b6 should be played. However, rook a c8 was played. I don't know why, because if b6, then just c4 maybe. Yeah, c4 is a good move here. I'm not sure that this bishop can take on e8, because the bishop is really good. And taking into account the weakness of light squares in white's camp, maybe it's not a good trade. Or maybe d4 is better here. Okay, anyway, knight b3, rook a c8 was played. This is a normal continuation. And here black loses a pawn. That was the idea. However, I'm not sure that it's the best option to take on h6. So the idea is to take on h6, and when this bishop is distracted, then this knight is hanging. However, maybe d4 is a better move, and after c takes on d4, knight takes on d4 with some pressure on this bishop, I think it was better. But white decided to take the pawn, and of course I understand it. Bishop h6, rook takes c5, b6 now, queen f3. Here knight goes to f6. It's not the best option, but later this knight helped. What to do in this position? I think something like rook to e1 makes sense, and with some pressure to e6 or e7, maybe we threaten to sacrifice on e6, because then we can play bishop h3 and take here with bishop, threatening the queen, rook and king. However, in this game rook d1 was played, and this is a blunder. Knight g4. What's the idea? If here knight takes on g4, then white loses a rook. So that's why rook went back. Knight h2, king h2, and still bishop g4 can be played, and white has to play with the queen, but lose the exchange on d1. Queen b7, rook c7. That's okay. Queen e4. And after queen e4, the best thing that black could do was just this trade on d1. And black is better, of course. However, black made a mistake. He played this move. Why this is a mistake? Because here queen d5 can be played with a temper. And after this move, black has to take, and then it's still a check, and white has enough time to play f3 or something like that. But king h7 was played. This is maybe even a better move. Queen takes, rook takes, and f3 anyway. Bishop h5. Now I think white is better. Why? Because this bishop doesn't really participate in the game. White has extra pawn, and his rook are more active. He has only one weakness on d3, but just d4 can be played. Yeah, so actually d4 should be the next move. But rook e6 was played. Maybe with the idea to put the pressure on e7. g5 to try to get this bishop out of a trap. H takes g5, bishop g5, and finally d4. Rook fd8. Maybe first bishop f7. Keeping in mind the idea to trade this bishop for a knight. Why? Because if so, then after black takes on d4, the pawn on d4 can be a weakness. And also, after trading this bishop for a knight, you may notice that we pass the endgame. We pass the game to the endgame with bishops of opposite color, what means that black can draw even without a pawn. Okay, rook fd8, bishop h3, bishop f3, bishop f5 check, king g7 was played. That was an accuracy, of course, because it allows rook g6 check. Then this is what happened in the game. King h8 was a good move, and white is still better, but after king g7, white is winning. King f7, and let's just move the rook to d3 or f1. d3 or f1 by attacking this bishop. No, I hope I believe d3 is a better option than if, for example, this move, rook g5, bishop d3, bishop takes on d3, right? And here white plays with 2 minor pieces and 1 extra pawn against the rook. And of course the bishop on d3 is really good. But Dadal played rook takes on g5. Bishop takes on d1, bishop takes on d7. Rook takes d7, d takes c5. King f6. Why not to take on c5? Because white can take with his knight on c5, and then this is how white attacks the rook and also joins his knight to the attack. So you see, in this position, white is just playing with 2 extra pawns, but it was much better to get 2 minor pieces for a rook. King f6, c6, attacking this rook. That makes sense. Rook d6, c7 to promote it. Rook c6, but rook d5, attacking the bishop now. And bishop f3. The best move was bishop g4 and to cover the c8 square. Maybe this move is possible, because then a takes here, rook takes on c7, and just 1 extra pawn. Yes, this position is winning, but it's not easy to win, and it was much better just to get 2 minor pieces for a rook. However, bishop f3. In this position, this is a blunder, and of course not rook d2, because rook d2 loses the pawn, but knight d4. This move should be played. Why? Because we just want to promote the pawn. So the main variation is bishop d5, knight takes on c6, and then if bishop takes knight, then white promotes. But if bishop e6, just knight e7, and white promotes anyway. And black has to sacrifice his only piece. If, for example, in this position black takes on c7, he just loses his bishop on f3. Knight f3 immediately, or maybe rook f5 first and then rook f3. I think this is a better option. Okay, fine, but white played rook d2 instead of knight d4. Probably he didn't notice or was in a time trouble. King g5, knight d4 now. Check, bishop b7, knight f3 check, maybe not the best one, so something like rook h2, because if we trade the rooks, then this endgame is absolutely winning. If not, then this rook can come to h8. So knight f3 check. Of course, this knight is not hanging because the bishop has to stay on b7 to control the pawn. King g4. And now rook h2. No, I don't understand. I would play king f2 because I think white needs to get his king closer to the center. But for some reason rook h2 was played. Rook h2, rook takes rook. Knight is hanging, knight has to take. King g3, knight f1. Now it's difficult to win because the pawn on c7 can be a weakness. Instead of moving the king to this pawn and then just take it for free, black decides to initiate a counterplay, and that was a mistake too. Why? Because knight c4, knight d6 wins the bishop. Oh, of course, the bishop for the pawn. As for the e-pawn, then the king can simply stop it. However, king f2. e4, another mistake. and king e2. So they both make mistakes. Instead, of course, knight c4. Knight c4, and nobody cares about this pawn because white can locate the king on e1 on the dark square, so that this bishop can't attack the king and there is no chance to promote the pawn. And then knight c4, knight d6. Nothing can stop this maneuver. King e2. Bishop a6 check. c4. Now c4 is played and there is no option for the knight to go to c4. That's a blunder. But e3. What I believe is another mistake. Instead, of course, king e5. But if 3 looks attractive. Knight b1, bishop c4. King e1 and bishop goes back. Knight c3, bishop to b7, knight b5, king to e5, but knight c8, and in this position white still promotes his pawn to a queen and takes the bishop, and then it's absolutely winning. Just knight b6, king takes on b6, and white takes the pawn on e3 and promote these two a and b pawns. This is how white won. So what you might learn from this game? All people make mistakes, and just try not to blunder. Every time when you make a move, think about what your opponent can do after you make this move. For example, after rook d1, it's obvious that something like bishop g4 can be played. But yeah, there is a knight here, but white can just simply trade it by playing knight g4 and win the exchange. Okay. Thank you for your attention. We will continue with our games analysis in our future videos.